We hear all the time about the big money donors who pull the strings of Republican politicians in Washington. But what we hear less about is the swamp on the other side. The public sector unions who fund and campaign for Democrats and who get paid back with budget-busting pension deals and policy positions that favour their members' interests at your expense. Public sector unions and their Democratic lapdogs are tonight's Swamp Watch. Last week, the Supreme Court announced it will hear a landmark case on whether public sector unions, which represent government employees like municipal and state workers, public safety officers, postal workers and prison officers, can force workers who are not members to pay monthly dues that go toward collective bargaining and political activity. The man who filed the petition is Illinois Child Protective Services employee Mark Janus. He wants to keep his job without having to pay his union, the American Federation of State, County and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, because he says it contributes to Illinois' budget and pension crisis. Of course, he's right. But it's not just Illinois. AFSCME and other government unions spend millions trying to get their preferred candidates elected right across the country, from your local school board to the presidency. And, surprise, surprise, 90% of their donations went to Democrats. That kind of spending buys real leverage when you're sitting at the negotiating table across from the Democrats that you helped elect. One member of California's largest public employee union had this blunt message for her state's Democratic politicians.
We helped to get you into office, and we got a good memory. And come November, if you don't back our program, we'll help to get you out of office.
Well, at least she's honest about it. But guess who pays for the favors that the politicians dole out to the unions in exchange for getting them elected? Taxpayers, for almost every single category of employee expense: wages, pensions, paid leave, vacation. State and local governments spend more than the private sector. In fact, it's around 50% more in total. Yes, these are your tax dollars at work, helping to bankrupt Detroit in 2013 with half the city's debt owed to its employee pensions and benefits. Keeping sanitation prices high in unionized Chicago, where it costs $231 per ton, compared to non-unionized Dallas, where it's only $74. And getting $500 million in contracts from Washington State's Governor Jay Inslee, who just happened to benefit from $750,000 in campaign contributions from the very same unions he was negotiating with. Then there's sunny California, my home state, and the epicenter of corrupt public sector union-spawned debt and bankruptcy. In May, Governor Jerry Brown signed a package of labor contracts that offered raises and bonuses to 126,000 people, about half the state's workforce. Of course, he was just returning a favor, as unions gave $3 million to the governor's re-election campaign. I think that's what's known as a quid pro quo, or, if you prefer a more straightforward term, bribery. By the way, teachers' unions were one of Jerry Brown's biggest backers, as they are for most Democrats, and the disastrous consequence of our schools is a subject that we'll return to in a future Swamp Watch. Of course, the only way Jerry Brown can afford to pay off his campaign debt to the unions is by raising taxes. And here, too, public sector unions are always ready with a helping hand. A few years ago, Governor Brown supported California Proposition 30 to raise some $6 billion a year by hiking taxes. Hey, that's our money, thought the unions. We'd better make sure Jerry gets it. So they spent $14 million campaigning for the tax increases on other Californians, taxes that would end up funding their own pay and pensions. The whole rotten circus is completely corrupt. But it's not just about financial payoffs. The Democrats' dependence on the unions leads to policy payoffs, too. Look no further than California's notoriously overcrowded prisons. In 1975, California imprisoned 65 people for every 100,000. By 2007, the incarceration rate had ballooned to 472 per 100,000, a 600% increase. It got so bad that in 2011, the Supreme Court ordered the state to cut its prison population by 30,000 inmates. What on earth caused this incarceration crisis? These people: the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, or CCPOA. In the 80s and 90s, this union lobbied the state to construct 22 new prisons, increasing by 4 times the number of guards, who, by the way, make on average over $100,000 each. In 1998, the Prison Officers Union cut a $1.5 million check to Democratic gubernatorial candidate Gray Davis. 4 years later, when Davis was getting ready to run for re-election, he returned the favor with a stunning 34% pay hike, adding $2 billion to the state budget. And like clockwork, just 8 weeks after that offer, the union helped him with another $1 million towards his re-election campaign. They also spent $100 grand to promote California's 3 Strikes initiative, which landed all sorts of non-violent offenders in jail. And they followed that with $1 million to defeat a proposition that would have amended the law to limit the crimes that trigger a life sentence. Fast forward 20 years, and the Golden State is now spending $11 billion a year on its correctional system, more than it spends on universities. When Jerry Brown, yes, him again, ran for governor in 2010, the prison officers gave him a cool $2 million, and he gave them 3 raises in the last 6 years. No wonder they were so proud of their role in his win and in many others. Take a look.
We won big this year, played a decisive role in electing a governor, elected new friends in the legislature. Of the 107 candidates endorsed by CCPOA this election, 104 were victorious.
CCPOA made the difference. They literally won this campaign for me, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Everyone's so happy and grateful in this cozy little club of corruption. When the Supreme Court takes up Mark Janus's case against AFSCME, the judges not only have a chance to prevent unions forcing their members to pay for things they disagree with, they also have an opportunity to drain the swamp that is the Democratic Party's dependence on public sector unions. Let's hope they take it.